You are listening to the Artwonk Podcast, a show where we take a deep dive into what it takes to be successful in marketing if you are a visual artist or craftsperson. We will explore how the art world works as well as how to better achieve your professional goals. I am Neville Parker, your host and resident Artwonk. So settle in and join me as we get today's show underway. This is episode 11, Opening Your Own Gallery. Yay! Hello everyone, welcome into this episode of the Artwonk Podcast. Kia ora to all my Kiwi friends. I'm really pleased to be doing this show, as I am obviously doing all of them, really enjoying this process. Hey, look, the last episode we talked all about direct selling, what it takes to sell direct to people, standing in front of them, talking about your work, and the relationship that might be formed around selling at a craft stall or in that type of environment. And I had a number of really cool emails from people saying that helped them or that it brought up new questions that they wanted answered, and slowly working through those with people. Here's the thing. I got an email from somebody who asked to be not to be named, so we will call you Anonymous. Anonymous actually said, I'm considering opening a gallery in my town. I have done for a while. Could you give me some advice about what it is that I should consider and what type of gallery would be best for me? Well, Anonymous, there's a big question. You know, there are a lot of different ways you can go to market. And seeing as how we haven't put a marketing plan together or anything yet, it seems like a good time to explore it. So today we're going to look at galleries. I'm going to split this show into three because there are three different types of galleries that I believe are the most commonly successful formats. Now there's lots of variations, people do all sorts of things, but the three different types of galleries that I recognize as core groups and that I have experience enough to talk on in terms of how they work, what might or might not be worth looking at. There's the art shop gallery, Main Street type experience. There's the studio gallery, so the maker selling direct experience. And there's the white box traditional gallery, which is, like described, a white walled gallery. So those are the three that I think are worth focusing on so Anonymous can get an overview. And I think we'll start today with the white box gallery because that's the traditional one that a lot of people tend to think about straight away when you mention gallery. Now, obviously, we're all going to be influenced by our past experiences, and it is important that you have some reference points when you're telling others or talking to others about things. So I'm going to focus on the traditional idea of a white box gallery, your fine art dealer gallery or your provincial galleries where it's all really about very little in the way of props or superfluous things. It's just a simple space with white walls because they're neutral and a focus on a changing show. So that's how I'm defining a white box gallery. We're going to call this show probably White Walls and Jellybeans because when I had a white box gallery of my own, we used to give jellybeans as our finger food instead of doing the traditional savory type of options. And we enjoyed pushing people into a slightly different mindset in our box. So, Anonymous, you're thinking about opening a gallery and your gallery is going to be a white box one for this conversation. So there are a number of things that you should be considering before you actually venture into the gallery world. First, it's always good to understand your competition. Years ago when I was managing an electronics store, I had a boss that had a company policy that if I could not tell him what was in the window of my competition at any moment in time, at least as far as that morning, I was dismissed, instantly fired, because he recognized and wanted us to recognize that if you don't know what people walking in the door might have in the front of their mind from others setting the conversation beforehand, then you're at a weak spot and he wouldn't tolerate it. So knowing what is out there, identifying your competition, because you will be competing, identifying what they're servicing in the way of the marketplace and what they're doing well, what you think you can do different. And we'll introduce this concept of the unique selling proposition. A unique selling proposition is what it is that you can do different from everyone else that actually leads to making sales or connecting with your market. What is it that you have that's different from them? Because it's pointless opening a gallery and creating turmoil within your local art community by doing it poorly. And you will run the risk of hurting the art community. So I'm assuming you love the art community. That's why you want to be part of it. So let's look at how we can do it healthily. Now, competition's a good thing. It definitely drives all sorts of standards of excellence up, but it also can be toxic. So going into something in a way that is actually healthy and thinks about the value and the strengths of you instead of focusing on the weakness of others, that's my approach to things. I think we should be always looking at growing our regional opportunity base. So I'm taking it that you're looking at this because you want to bring value to your local community by offering something new. So what is that something new? Well, first off, you've got to work out what's there. So it's important to go out and look in the marketplace. Have a look around at who's doing what, where, why they're doing it. Are they an art shop experience or a studio gallery? If you're doing a white box, then obviously you should be specifically looking at the white boxes out there and working out what you like about what they do and what you would do differently. Then honing in on what you would do differently and checking that you can actually achieve that. Is it actually something that's doable, or have others tried and failed because there is actually a reason behind it? Now, myself, when somebody says to me, don't do this because it won't work, I'm the personality that has to give it a crack. I mean, I've just got to prove it to myself, because while everyone else is avoiding it, I see it as an opportunity. If nobody's going there, then what's there that I can use to learn and to evolve and manipulate an experience or a material to behave in a way that's unique and I can explore on my own terms? So I would never tell you in this experience, don't do something because others aren't. But I'd ask you to think about, why am I doing it? That's an important part behind it. Right, so we're going to look at our white box galleries in the community. And lo and behold, we don't have any if we're a small community, or we only have one or two, so that's nice and easy. And if we're in a bigger community, a lot of centres and cities have quite a few of these types of galleries. Then we're looking at, where would I sit within them in terms of what do I like, what don't I like? Is it I like this one's building or location, I like this one's presentation, I like the size of that one, really like the art mix that one has. So first off, work out what's out there. Look for a gap. Look for something that means you can add value to the experience for the art community. Because if they're not experiencing something that offers them value, they will not indulge in your experience. And as a gallery, you are selling an experience completely and above the artwork. The art is what you sell on any given day, but in between times and bridging from one show to another, you're selling an experience. You're selling a concept, and your concept in a white box gallery will be one of selection and excellence, and you're going to be looking at traditional values a lot of the time, not in the art that you're showing, but in the way that we go about it. It is expected and works best within the white box environment to have regular shows that change, that have openings, and that meet certain criteria in terms of the way the work's presented. Now, you can change those things, but at some point you change it far enough that you're no longer a white box, you become one of the other galleries we'll talk about. So we're going to keep it simple. We're not going to try and push too far out of our box, inverted commas. We've got a white box space that we've found. So let's start with that. The where. Where would you place a gallery like this? Well, generally, people are prepared to travel for galleries. They're prepared to travel for an experience, but they're not prepared to travel too far for a white box experience. You can be on the peripheries of your local town or business district, but not too far off, because part of the whole gallery experience for people is the openings and the social element that builds itself around a gallery. And if you go too far afield from the corresponding bars, restaurants, and the follow-on from your opening, then less people come to your opening. It becomes a distraction from their day instead of a way of augmenting their experience. And remember, you're selling an experience first and foremost, because that's part of the process of this gallery description. So where is important? We're looking for something that has parking nearby. You want good access if you're going to sell a range of art. So if you're going to be upstairs in a building, and upstairs is acceptable for a gallery. It doesn't work so well for some of the other formats, but for a white box gallery it can do. But remember that it will limit or could limit some of the pieces that you stock in your gallery. So you're looking for a space that is accessible with good, easy to find type of location. Signage and things like that will be, that's part of your marketing, your business plan, so not going to worry about that right now. So we're looking for a where. We're looking for a what? Well, we want something that is a nice neutral space. My experience is the best-selling spaces have more than a normal 8-foot stud. They get up into the 9, 10 or more type of height so that volume feels like it adds gravitas to the space. You're wanting something that has good sight lines so that you can look from one side of the gallery to the other with a bigger work and stand back without too many visual interruptions. Scale is not as important as people think in terms of number of square meters covered, but you're having a sense of scale. So a lot of this is actually emotion-based. We're talking about how it feels more than how it looks. Small spaces can feel big. When you walk into a space and the light feels right, that's where you're getting a mixture of natural light and artificial light, or the artificial light is really well positioned. If it's not, you're going to have to address that because lighting sells art. So we're looking for a space that has nice sight lines, preferably a space that has at least one long aspect in it. Square spaces are fine if they're big enough. But if you can find a rectangular space, if you can't find a square one, then that will help, because you want a nice long wall to be able to have diminishing return. As people look, they see things they can't quite focus on. That draws them down, and having a feature wall at the end can be really powerful. So the space itself can be really adaptable, but we're looking for those types of elements. Myself, I believe that a good floor is really important in a gallery. Carpet is acceptable. It muffles sound and it creates a more intimate experience, and that can be great, but it does not help with lighting. And because light is so key in a gallery space, the traditional polished concrete floor or wooden floor with varnish, or something that has a bit of life to it, not too much of a pattern unless it is a resounding feature of the space. Ideally you're wanting something that enhances that sense of grandeur. So we're selling grand things. We want grand gestures. We want the space to feel like it can carry that. So that's what we're looking for. Okay, so we've now found that, let's assume. I'm going to describe this one. It's not too big. Mid-sized space, nice white walls, 9-foot stud, already has lighting in because it's some goodness me, get my tenses right, some past time, it had another retail outlet in there, so there's track lighting up, so I can add lights where I need it. It's wonderful. Because if it's not, that is a cost in your setting up you must consider. You will need to have adaptable and good quality light. We've got this one we're going to place actually on the first floor of a building, but with great big windows, so lots of natural light, but only on one wall, so that I still have 3 really strong selling walls. What else are we going to have in there? I think that's enough, really. We've got a basic shell. It has a lift in the building so that we can get heavier and bigger objects up to our floor, and the public can use that if they've got any kind of mobility issues. So we've covered a number of bases there. Next, we need to look at who. So we found a space. It's really accessible to town. It's just on the edge of the retail precinct, so our costs aren't too high because we're not competing with retailers. And look, the simple rule when it comes to leasing, and I believe this covers most European-styled cultures, anything more than 3 steps off the footpath height is cheaper per square metre in rent, because the public won't walk up 3 steps to go into a shop unless they really have to. You'll see a lot of shops give up very valuable floor space simply to put in a ramp because they know this is true. It's not because people can't. In fact, the number who have mobility issues is such a tiny percentage of your shopping market that it really doesn't even come into the maths. It's because people just don't like walking up steps. So if you're on the first floor, you will lose some potential customer traffic. But the thing about art is people who are looking for an art experience recognize it's worth the effort. They do travel. They will hunt you out. They don't expect you to be in the middle of the busiest street in town. So as such, you have an advantage. You can get at those spaces at a slightly lesser cost, and they will come. If you can't make accessibility available for all groups in this day and age, that's something we should be aware of. Having an alternative is important. If you can't, then that sadly is a limiting factor on your business, but shouldn't stop you if you believe that that space is still the space for you. Okay, what are we going to sell in our gallery? What type of gallery are we? We're a white wall gallery, so we know we're going to run a show catalogue. We're going to try and run our shows for 3 weeks, allow a week, a month of downtime, so between pulling one show apart, putting another one up, and that's generous because that's actually selling time you're losing, so most try not to do that. Normally you would find, I think most of the galleries I'm aware of these days, if they're running a 3-week catalogue, the last couple of days of those 3 weeks that are allocated is pack down and repaint and clean up, and the first couple of days of the next 3-week show is set up so that they're still trying to get 3 shows, a show of 3 weeks duration under each artist heading. But if we say a month is our turnaround, so we've got 12 shows a year, so we have to work out whether or not we can create enough business that in 12 selling opportunities we pay our way and we attract good artists. So sometimes having longer shows and a prestigious location will guarantee you dominance in your marketplace. Other times having longer shows in a slightly less prestigious location can help pull new artists in. Others don't care. It really is a moving target on that one. So you're going to work out what you think you can manage. Now, hand on heart, honesty time. The reason I don't have a white wall gallery anymore, a white box gallery, is simply because I'm not organized enough. I took no pleasure in organizing months in advance and chasing people and all of the things that are necessary in making this work. It didn't fit my creative tendencies. It's more a technician's tendencies. So you have to be aware that you're going to be managing people, and you're hoping to manage professional people, because you're going to be targeting the top end of the market, because you need people who are attached to that culture to actually propagate your business, to go out into the community and spread the word. And that happens through having your openings and connecting with the culture of your art community more on a sort of a subliminal level. It's a mixture of viral marketing and outright selling. So we know what we want to sell maybe. We're going to focus on paintings, or maybe we're going to focus on sculpture. It's worth having in your mind what it is. Contemporary art of your region, only local art, art from out of region. Maybe you're going to be a jewellery gallery or a ceramics gallery is your specialty. It doesn't really matter what, but you need to think about what it is that you're going to build your business name around. Then we're back to who again. So who are we going to actually talk to who makes the work so that we can start planning how we're going to have this work? And we need to think of who's going to buy. So let's break them into the who makes first. The who make category, we're needing artists that are able to sustain themselves without having a sale a week or a couple of sales a month over a good part of our year, because we may not be able to offer them more than one or two showing opportunities. Often that means that galleried artists who work through the white box system have other galleries, so they have shows that they're planning for, and that's their format. They're really great to work with because they understand that it's delayed gratification. They will make the stuff and then wait for the sale. And you can still have a stock room where you keep things, but most often, once it's off the shop floor, if it's no longer on the walls, you need to be focusing on the next show. So it's really not easy to be continuing to, to spread the word on these past shows. So we're looking for people who are able to work within our gallery structure, people who are not on the edge fiscally and struggling too much, because all of us are, but we want people who understand the rhythm of a gallery. So people who make works that have enough gravitas to hold the attention in a space. And think about how a gallery like this works. When you set up the displays, you're basically telling everyone that this work is so important that I'm going to give up all of the opportunities to hang things close or around it, and make it the star of a space. Whether that's on a pedestal with a whole lot of floor around it, or whether it's up on the wall, you're selling the concept that it is important enough to have space. And in today's environment, where we have more things than ever in our homes, and because we know that the cost of shops is such that they have more stock on the floor than they ever used to, they don't want to miss the opportunity to make a sale. They don't want to miss the opportunity to tell you about the other things they do. We're living in a visually and audibly cluttered world. It's everything, everywhere, all the time. So part of the appeal of this white box environment is that you are offering breadth. It's the gap between the artworks that helps add value. So we want works that actually can carry that off. If they're things that feel like they've been seen everywhere else, and you're not got a name attached to the artist, that means that the collectors are coming in solely for their name, then you need to think about, when you're starting especially, what type of work am I going to find that will help define my space? Who can I align myself with? What is their strength? What is their unique selling proposition that I can put beside mine and create a journey together? So a lot of galleries in this environment define themselves by whom they represent. And a lot of the artists define themselves by the gallery that represents them. The symbiosis works really well. So we need to find some who's who make well, who make to a rhythm that will work with us, who are prepared to get behind our concept. Because when we're new, we're going to need supporters, and we need who's that can carry with them, ideally, some experience. And this is where the journeyman and emerging artist really struggles, because it takes a while for a gallery to stand on its own feet. From what I've read and my experiences, roughly 5 years before you are a strong enough destination as a white box that you don't have to market or produce a constant stream of innovation to really be able to roll on just your past catalogue, or the artists that you've taken on. And artists, bear in mind, the galleries are looking for new or emerging people because they'd like to build that 5-year plan. So as you get better, get more prominence, you are attached to them. So it's not like you're closed out, but there will be a bit of a hardship in that getting attention phase. So a gallery that sets itself up solely around unknowns will spend more money trying to tell people what they've got. And that's just part of the business plan, which you address in that next stage. What you could also keep in mind, though, is that the young now come with amazing connection platforms. And so do some of the older people. But generally speaking, the what do they call themselves these days? The technological natives, the tech natives, the kids who have grown up with the internet and all the things that a lot of us oldies didn't grow up with, have the ability to spread the word and help your business grow just by virtue of their contacts. So never overlook them if you're planning your gallery. But do think about the fact that you are trying to talk to a traditional market base, and you're going to be, by doing this, selecting a slightly more traditional format So don't push too far off your norm until you get evolved and going. The buyers. Who are the buyers? Well, the buyers are the people who are going to the other galleries already and going to the openings. And they are not always buyers. Often they are influencers and they are patrons. And they're the type of person who very often is an artist or attached to an artist as well. The biggest consumers of art, folks, are artists. We are who keeps our industry going. Look at nearly every artist place and you'll find we trade, we buy, we swap, we steal, we do whatever it takes to get us the piece of art that we want from someone we love and respect. And so making the place about that opening, at least on the opening day or night, is really important, because these are the people who are going to go out and tell others you need to do whatever. You need to go, you need to look, you need to check them out. An online presence is important these days if you're going to do this, because having that gives you a broader sales spread. But again, that's a marketing thing. I'm just looking at your space. So we want to make sure that our buyers are invited. You can't rely on them just showing up. This is an invitational system. So we need to have good signage or way that people can find us. Some of the things when we're choosing that location, just to jump back a little bit, we're going to be looking at hitting a slightly older market initially. And as such, we need to think about safety and security, picking a place that has parking, easy parking nearby, good lighting leading up to or around it so that people feel safe coming out at night if you're going to have openings at night. And it's best to, because those who are working, they don't have the option of coming out during the day, and weekends are family time and highly, highly contested time zones. So you want to have an opening in the evening if you can, in my experience anyway. And I used to run a white box where we did our opening Sunday afternoons. We did it early enough that people could get to us because we were driving the country, 35, 40 minutes out of town. We were a destination. They came to do other things as well. And then we had to leave them enough time to get on. So normally around 2, 3 in the afternoon was our target time. It did have diminishing returns insofar as we weren't getting the big numbers at our openings of randoms, but our core group grew and grew and grew because we stuck with it. Anyway, so back to it. We need good parking, we need good lighting so it's a safe footpath or safe environment to really drag these people out in the evenings. If you happen to have restaurants, food options, bars, or other things for them to move on to afterwards, then that's definitely well worth it. And we need to invite them. We've got to build a list. Part of that is going to other openings yourself, going along, seeing who's showing up. There's lots of ways of making those lists. But if you're planning on opening a gallery, Mr. Anonymous, you do need to think about that fact. You can start right when you're planning, making a list. Make sure your own accountant, your own lawyer, anyone that you deal with, your doctor, your dentist, people who are professionals who may be earning reasonable money and may enjoy making this part of their social connection group, contact them, let them know that you're doing it. Start building your list. So we've got the who's, both ends covered. We've got the what. We've got the place. The why. Okay, why are you doing this? You need a why story. You need a story as much as the artist needs a story. You are now creating a brand, and having an origination story, an origin story that you can put against this gallery experience helps you keep on track. So why are you doing this? Is it because you found that gap? If it is, focus on the gap and make sure you can tell people why you're here. You will get press coverage from a lot of the local press if you give them good copy. They need a story. They need a reason to have their readers or their viewers tune in. They're struggling every day to fill that space. If they're bloggers or whatever they are, they're always looking for things. If you can give them a good why, you will get support, you'll get things spread, but it also keeps you focused in there. So that's the kind of the building of where we're going to put Anonymous's white box gallery. Got a rough mental picture of what we're doing. So finally, I want to look at just how you lay out a white box gallery. What are the concepts behind the space? Well, first and foremost, of course, you have to think about the fact that you're selling artwork. If you're a showing gallery, so you've managed to somehow find funding for your shows, so it's not about making a sale, that's a format that I haven't even touched on, and that can work really well. But you do have to be able to tap that funding stream regularly enough to survive. But whether or not you're a showing gallery or a selling gallery, you're there to make the artwork the star. So there are a couple of concepts that work within White Box that are really important. First and foremost, the neutrality. Why white? Because if you keep the background as pure as possible, then the artwork is always the star. And that's really important. You're looking to create drama. And the artwork can create drama, but if you've got a lot of dramatic pieces, like if you have a lot of divas in a band or in a choral group or whatever, you can have conflict because they're all trying to scream at you for the attention at the same time. So you need to organize that drama so that it works. It's about balance and harmony. So again, this is the power of the space around the work. It offers breadth for the eye and hopefully for the pulse. You go from one exciting piece to another. You want a little bit of a drop off, because if you keep it all at 100 miles an hour for the whole show or the whole space, you've just diminished completely that effect. You've taken away the drama. You've dulled it down to the point where people won't notice. So we're looking to lay our spaces and our shows out in sort of a cohesive fashion. We want to create some core elements at core places. And in doing that, you need to make sure you've got the good lighting I mentioned. You're also going to possibly need to look at plinths and other selling aids like that. If you're going to have shelves to go on the wall for a smaller object, then you might want to look at how you can get hold of some white shelves that can be placed on the wall but removed. And this is a tricky thing, but there are systems out there. Myself, I'm not a big fan of the dado rail type of hangings where you have a bar running just above eye height that all the pieces fit onto. It does speed up the hanging of a show. I find, because I am an object artist primarily, that for sculptural pieces where it's not about uniform shapes and it's about subtlety of shadow and other things, that those can distract from the market that I'm trying to talk to. So thinking about what your key market is will give you a lead into what type of fixtures and fittings you might have to invest in. But there are a number of hanging options out there that make it easier. Work out within your decision-making process of the where and the who, whether there's any special needs you might have. If you make your gallery all about accessibility and you have a very large retirement community nearby and you're looking to sell to them a lot, there you'll focus on the marketing, and you have people with mobility issues, so a lot more come in who need to sit down. Think about the fact that you might need more benches in the middle of your gallery for people to sit and contemplate if you're going to go that way. Remember your wheelchair access or your ramping so that those who have mobility issues can get in easily. So your configuration of your gallery will reflect your overall marketing decisions. So things like some form of seating is a valuable thing to have in a gallery, because invariably one person's interested and another one's not. And if you give the non-interested a parking space, then you give them permission to let the other one shop. Remember, we are about making sales. We're still going to welcome people. We're going to qualify what their interests are and we're going to close them. But we do need to make sure that we environmentally amplify our opportunities. So seating is really powerful in a white space, either a bench or some kind of comfortable seat for people to either view the artwork or to wait while others are viewing. Keep in mind also that you can't sell from every space the same way in every show. So understanding the story of the show, you're needing to think about how you lay things out when you start putting your shows together. Now, my experience is that the first couple of meters inside a door, that first 8-10 feet, is useless selling space. It is space where you will not make a sale, because people, when they're coming in, they're looking around at everything. They're checking the lay of the land. They're actually looking to see if they're in the right place. If they're first timers, if they're familiar, they're still just doing that transitional stage where they're leaving the footpath and the other world behind. catching their breath, if they've just climbed a pile of steps, whatever it is. So anytime you're going to have literature like a show catalogue or whatever, that's a great spot for that. But don't place artwork right in front of people as they come in the door. It will not sell, and it doesn't get looked at. An artist, when you are helping your gallerist lay out a show, it's a useless spot. People clamber for it. I think it's comical how many people will get bent out of shape because they want to be put in the worst selling place in the whole gallery. But that's what that spot is. It's a landing ramp. So keep it clear. The first work that they come across, if they're in a Northern Hemisphere gallery, is normally to the right-hand side seems to be the flow. You can direct that depending on where the door sits on the wall and where the counter may be, but the reality is that people tend to circulate in a... most actually go, in the Southern Hemisphere anyway, they go in a clockwise fashion. In the Northern Hemisphere, I noticed a lot more were inclined to go in a anti-clockwise fashion, so they go to the right. I think that primarily comes down to when they're conflicted, when they first come through that doorway. If they have to move out of the way or make a decision, people tend to stick to the side that's safest on the footpath or the road. But you have a natural flow, and the space will disclose to you what that flow is pretty quickly. Even before you put up the artwork, watch the visitors and helpers when you're setting up come in. Which way do they move around the place? Your first work should be a stunning piece. It should be an introduction piece. And then you lay out a bit of calm, and then another stunner, and so on through. If the show is all stunners, great. If you have a lot of small pieces, you're going to want to think about impact and how they relate to any larger pieces, and that's merchandising. We'll talk about that more fully. But once you develop a flair for your space, and you should be looking at that when you're even in the process of looking at the space, you're looking to see, how might I show small objects? How might I show lots of objects? How might I show one object? I mean, have you ever walked into a gallery space where it's a massive area, there's a plinth in the middle and a tiny thing on it? The power of that statement is stupidly overwhelming. It's like I've got to walk all the way over there into the middle of the floor where I feel a little bit exposed to even see what it's all about. And then when I get there, if this is all the show's about, it better be good. And if it isn't, then I've got a whole lot of information and conflict and things that hasn't met my expectations. And I've had an experience, and that's what galleries should do. They should generate within you excitement and interest. So when you're looking at that space, look at these things. Try and plan in your mind how they might work. So that's how I think about a space, Anonymous. When it comes to a white box gallery, they're the things that I look at, I check off. I think, are they good or bad? If I'm looking at representation for my artwork, I make the same evaluations on the gallery. Is it going to meet all of the requirements for the people I want to talk to? Will they come out at night? You know, they might have good openings, and I've been to a couple of them, and I like the style. That's really important, the personal style, the way the host of the show, which is the gallery, how they welcome people, how they behave. Are they good speakers in public? Gosh, we've all been to so many gallery openings where people stumble through the speech. Drives you mad. But not everyone can be a great speaker, and that's fine. But if that's part of their charm, it's great. If it's not, it makes you uncomfortable, use those filters to look at what you're going to do. So that's white box for me. Next, we're going to move into, I think the next one we're going to do is studio gallery. How to look at a studio gallery and how to make a studio gallery a working space for Anonymous. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time. This has been a bit of a longer one than normal. We went into some deep detail there. I hope that gave you a sense of what you might be sort of appreciating your gallerist goes through in making a place for you to have your artwork. And yeah, if you have any questions like Anonymous did, please feel free to use the email that I babble on about coming up in a minute. And any other form of communication. And tell people, please, about our podcast. I notice on the stats that are coming through for me that we're getting a great number of Apple listeners. We only had a couple of reviews. Please like us, give us some stars, help us out. I know it's what everyone does in terms of pleading and all the rest, but it's part of the game. The more successful this is, the more motivated I stay, because I'm a creative and I'll see something shiny. And if you're getting value from it, or somebody you know is going to get value from it, the more we're likely to keep going. Oh my God, I just did it, my very first ad for myself. It was naff. I've got to work on that one. Anyway, folks, I'm off to make something. I've done too much talking today. Take care. Hi everyone, it's Neville here again. Hey, just before I go, I want to remind you that we now have a new email address. It's info@theartwonk.com. And also the artwonk.com is our website, which we're in the process of getting set up with show notes and follow-up from the shows. So please get in contact with us if you have any questions or feedback, especially if you feel that I glossed over something that's of importance to you. Really would enjoy having that connection with you as somebody who's trying to be a creative in today's environment, and let me know if there's stuff that I'm missing out or stuff you'd like to know. So now I'm off to my studio. Happy creating!